Okay.
And joining us here, of course, he's one of the greats in UCF volleyball history. Of course, now a color commentator. You see her all over the place on ESPN Plus. You saw her this year doing some of the UCF matches. She'll be doing ESPN Plus for the A-Sun Beach volleyball. What, April 23rd through 25th? You're moving on to big world here.
That's correct. Yes.
We
I
speak-
know. Beach volleyball. We're getting it broadcasted. That's what's good.
That's right. Erin Campbell joining us here. So how are you doing, first of all? Let's start with that. How is everything's going broadcasting-wise? You're busy.
Yeah, busy, but good. I'm so fortunate to have had the opportunity to take my, former life as a student athlete and convert it into something that allows me to give back to the sport that gave me so much, gave me a free education, gave me some great relationships, brought me to Orlando. So it's also just really fun to talk about and educate people. My mom always says that I make the game more interesting, but keep that in mind. It's my mom. She may be a little bit biased, but it
I
is
agree with her.
cool to kind of help people understand how complicated the game of volleyball. Yeah,
I
thanks.
I agree with her. Like I've got
good.
it.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've got it in my contract. I'm only doing volleyball if Aaron's my analyst because I don't know what I'm doing otherwise. So, Mom, I agree.
Despina said the same thing to me in the garden. Yeah, well, good. I'll tell her that you said that.
Very good. Well, let's talk about a team you know very well, UCF, obviously making the tournament for the third straight year, winning the conference for a third straight year, 16-1 overall. What was your overall impression having seen them in person a handful of times calling their matches?
It's pretty incredible what this team has been able to achieve. They hadn't played a real match in over 13, 18 months because of all the COVID stuff. And their season is so truncated. They're at the point now where they 16, 17 games, that's very, very early in the season, right? So there's still a lot of stuff that they're flushing out. There's a lot of chemistry stuff they're flushing out, lineup stuff. But what I noticed about this team is that they were super resilient, and they had their highs and lows like any team would, but their response to those highs and lows, very mature. They didn't allow the extenuating circumstances of what's going on to interfere with their focus and dedication and discipline to the game. And I think that that's going to be one of those things that carries them through 1, 2, 3, 4 matches in the NCAA tournament.
Of course, they are led by McKenna Melville, who is the American Conference Player of the Year, 8th UCF player to get that honor. Seeing McKenna, obviously such a great player, what stands out? What makes her such a great player?
She's not a hugely emotional player. Yes, she'll get heated at moments, but she's very, very stoic, even keeled. She is a powerhouse, so she hits the ball, hundreds of miles an hour, as it feels like, but she just has a really heavy arm swing, is very good at just getting on top of the ball. She's good at reading her shots, her defense, and the team just looks to her for a lot of that composure. And she is the perfect leader to kind of guide them through those tough moments.
McKenna is 20, I believe she's 25 digs away from 1,000 career digs. She would be the 6th UCF player to have over 1,000 kills and over 1,000 digs in a career. Only 6. Tyra Harper's in the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame is one of them. You're one of them.
Yeah.
So you're the perfect person to ask. Describe for the audience that may not be as familiar why that is such a tough thing to accomplish, having over 1,000 kills and over 1,000 digs, and what that means.
It's kind of twofold. I think a lot of people, when they go into the collegiate athletics environment, they don't realize that not everyone starts when they're freshmen, right? The normal transition for freshmen, sophomores is to learn from the upperclassmen to eventually evolve and take over their position. So to have someone that starts their career as a starter as a freshman and in those early years, that kind of helps sets you up for that success. It's probably impossible to do it in just 2 years, right? So having the acumen and the athleticism to do that over your entire career is pretty powerful. But what it also says to me is that, she's just an all-around player, right? They don't rely on her just for the attacks. they rely on her to play good defense. They rely on her to pass well. And she's fulfilled that role to the umpteenth degree, that close to getting into that category. So I think that that's the part that's most impressive. It speaks more about her overall athleticism than anything else.
There it is. I wrote about it on Nightcap there. She's currently 7th all time in kills, 1,348. She passed you earlier this year. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good. Good.
She's 20 behind Kia Bright for 6th all time, and she's 27 digs away. She would join Miriam Metzkets, hopefully I said it correctly. She was part of the great UCF teams in the early 90s that won the A-Sun a bunch of times. Tyra Harper, who's arguably the greatest player in program history, has been on the U.S. national team. Right, Olympia Beach. She, Renata Mechikova, is also in the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame, the all-time leader in kills. Yourself and Kia Bright. That's the list. That's the group that's had 1,000 kills and 1,000 digs. McKenna's 27 digs away from chasing that, making that. And with her eligibility, has an outside chance of breaking Menchikova's kills record, which is kind of impressive, Erin, because when Menchikova and Harper played, the scoring system was different. Explain that for those that may not be aware, why this is maybe even more impressive what McKenna's doing from a stat standpoint than back in the 90s when the game was played differently.
Yeah, the game used to be completely different because they used something called side out scoring. So you could only score a point when you served the ball. It wasn't this rally scoring. Basically, whoever wins the point gets the point. Back in the day when Tyra and Renata were, leading the charge and kind of leading UCF to be the perennial power that they are, the scoring system was different. So you had more chances to get kills, period, because think you have to do it double time, right? In our environment with the rally scoring, first ball kill, you're out of it. That's the point. Everybody gets that rally, and the game goes a lot faster. With side out, you only played to 15 points, but that 1 point could take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rallies back and forth because you had to serve the ball in order to get the point. So just a totally different game. And a totally different strategy, right? The game keeps changing, but the game never changes. And during that time, you just had more opportunities. So for her to be able to surpass that would be pretty incredible.
Could happen, obviously, with the extra year eligibility, but even without the extra year of eligibility, she was kind of on track to maybe break that record, which is pretty remarkable career for her to this point. An amazing resume, but she's not the only player on the team. Let's talk about Anne-Marie Watson. What a senior local kid. What is her impact on this team?
Yeah, I remember watching her. So Juanita hit, it kind of goes full circle. So Juanita coached me at UCF, and was when I was working with Spectrum or Bright House at the time, we were doing those high school games of the week. And I had the chance to watch Juanita coach Anne-Marie Watson. And I just remember thinking back then what a natural athlete she was for the game. There's a certain type of body type, character that volleyball players have, and she has that to the umpteenth degree. Then you see her get into a system, watch her volleyball IQ develop as her collegiate experience has developed, and she has just become probably one of the best right side attackers that UCF's ever had. I had the opportunity to play with people like Evia Vilde, who was arguably one of the best as well. And Watson has just done an absolute stunning job on that right side. And I think what people don't also realize is that she's more than just a big hitter. She's so smart, and she's communicating with her setters always to create better opportunities for herself and her team. And she's probably one of the best right side blockers that I've seen. Super disciplined, and keep in mind, she's going up against the Melvilles of everywhere else. She's going up against some of the best attackers. They put the best attackers on the outside for the most part, and she's defending them and shutting them down. So really, when she's in that front three, she is the player you want to watch.
Talk about UCF's defense and their blocking, because Watson's one of the best blockers all time. She's up top there in many of the categories there, alongside Harper, who's the all-time great in blocks there. But she's not the only one there that sets up their defense.
Yeah, Moravec, I think, is, when I played with Jennifer Heppert too back in the day, and one thing that I heard a coach say about Jenny Heppert was she is the hungriest middle blocker you'll ever see. She was so dedicated to getting blocks that was like her whole career. That was the whole makeup she had. And when I watched Moravik, kind of another person, evolve and get that volleyball IQ over the past few years. She has become probably the single best middle blocker I've seen. She's so quiet and balanced and so disciplined. It's almost like watching her perform a ballet on the court. She moves left and right really quiet. She's kind of sneaky that way. You don't hear her coming. She perfectly times her blocks. She's very good at reading her one-on-one player. And I think that the defense, having a good block, the defense is only as good as what's happening at the front row, and she helps the defense become successful. Then you have people like Arjumand, who is just, a libero who's not afraid to bleed a little bit on the floor. She's super smart, will read the attack, runs balls down like crazy. She's just super athletic and has that volleyball IQ as well. And, we have to give credit to her high school coach, and Tanya Jarvis, who is another former UCF athlete, former UCF outside. And, I think the foundation that Arjumand had at Bishop Moore, then leading into her college career, I mean, she's probably I'd say arguably the best libero in the conference right now. So she's just done a great job leading that charge.
This is why you're here. I love you got your knowledge here on the local area. But I'm glad you bring that up, because talk about the impact from a recruiting standpoint, the talent locally, because Todd's taken advantage of that with Watson and and among others.
Yeah.
And now with this program, with the success. I mean, I've mentioned this. This is 3 straight conference titles for them. It's the 3rd time in the Division I era for this program that they've done that, where they've been to 3 straight NCAA's, 3 straight conference. And I would assume the local aspect of it is going to only grow from that, getting that talent to want to stay home.
Yeah. And, I think UF has had that position for a really long time, right? They've been the Florida school that everyone wants to play at. And I don't think that's just volleyball. I think that that's every sport in general. But as the University of Central Florida grows and the programs continue to get better and better, and it's in your backyard, I think that that's what makes it. These kids are seeing these girls at this level and they're thinking, I want to be that. And there are a lot of volleyball clubs in Central Florida that the last match Despina and I did against USF, there were tons of clubs in that gym. And so they're seeing kind of what they want to aspire to be. And I think that that's, it's just like any kind of alumni system. You build people to get excited about the university through their alumni. We're building the excitement about the athletic program with these younger generations. And so Todd is very fortunate to have such good volleyball programs here to pull from. But I think every Florida collegiate program would be pretty excited to say that, because Florida's pretty full of some athletes. So it's really exciting to see him capitalize on all of that.
Well, and he's turned that venue into a great atmosphere. Even obviously this year withstanding that, but that's got to help recruiting too, right? Because you didn't play like in a venue with that type of atmosphere when you were playing here, did you?
The venue was I think we had the venue for 2 years.
At that point, so it was still early.
Freshman year was education building. Yeah. Yeah, it was still early. So it hadn't been converted kind of into the volleyball mecca that it is now. Yeah. But it's pretty incredible to see that it's become their home. And I was thinking about that actually when we were doing the broadcast. I was like, this is their home. This is it. And we were kind of in that transition period, so we didn't have that same vibe, but I'm so happy that they have that, because the big programs have that. They all do. So, that just puts us on par with all the other big volleyball programs across the country.
Well, and it's huge too, not to have to share it with a basketball team like a lot of volleyball programs have to do, even major programs do. So it allows them to be more creative from a scheduling standpoint, etc. Let me ask you about Todd, because you've had a unique perspective on his career. You were on the original team when he took over the program. So you played for him. You've seen him as an analyst, courtside, literally, as the program has grown under him. What have you seen from him? How has he evolved? How has he changed from when you played for him to now when you cover him as from a media standpoint?
Well, keep in mind when he inherited the program, when I was there, the prior coaching staff recruited on completely different aspects. They recruited on athleticism, not volleyball technique, not volleyball experience. So Todd had a really unique challenge of trying to come in and teach a bunch of athletes basically the core of Division I volleyball. he was a very, very fundamental technician. And I think that he stayed true to that because he was willing to take really raw players. Like think of Angelica Crump. I mean, I remember watching her come in the first time in the gym, and I was like, man, the second this girl gets it, she's gonna be scary. And she was terrifying. When she would get when she would get a hold of a ball, that thing would bounce off the 10-foot line and go. So his willingness to take risk on rawer players and then the commitment to building them to be successful just shows that his plan from the beginning was long term. And the girls that he's getting now, the girls that he's able to recruit because he laid such the good foundation in being a technician and building players as they came into his program. Now he doesn't have to focus so much on that. Now he can really work on that final 10% with these players because he's able to recruit more volleyball focused, more advanced volleyball players into his program. And I think his coaching style has evolved with that.
His coaching staff's fascinating. He's got 2 former head coaches on staff. Jenny Maurer runs the offense, and then Brian, who runs the defense. And he's talked about how that's really helped him and to have 2 former head coaches on the staff because it brings different opinions, different ideas, and that's a good thing. Like he's actually welcomed the disagreement because it helps to grow. Just talk about that dynamic and having spent time with that, getting to know that staff and what the system they bring.
I think any head coach gets coaches in that he can trust. But I think having other head coaches in there, that takes that trust level to the next level. Because as a head coach, you have to have your fingers in everything, right? And everything that is done, it has to kind of default to you. You have to make the executive decision. But having other coaches that were head coaches, Todd can be more autonomous in looking at the full picture. He doesn't have to micromanage those specific aspects of the game. And I think that because of that, he's been able to focus on the things that he finds more important and allowing, Jenny Maurer has an incredible reputation in the volleyball world. And you see it when she recruits these girls from the Midwest. That's the connection there. And she's just done such a phenomenal job. She's kind of that perfect balance. I was fortunate enough to play with Michelle Chapman, and Michelle was just such a middle blocker technician that's exactly what our team needed. And I think Jenny is filling the role very successfully with Todd to be, the setting guru. She's the offensive quarterback. She's the quarterback's coach, and she's done a phenomenal job in that position.
Really, especially in the conference championship where they were without Amber Olsen for contact tracing and things. So they kind of had to adjust on the fly. Dresde Pass had to come in and play, and their system even they talked about had to be adjusted literally going into the tournament, a quick turnaround with the setters.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, the thing is that I think they've done such a good job. They've had so much time to train that they've really taken the time to train. You know what I mean? I don't know if a lot of coaches were capitalizing on that to the same extent that UCF's coaching staff has. And, Brian's done just an awesome job to be that defensive coordinator. And you're seeing, their defensive system is so well balanced and it's so disciplined. You're not going to find people out of position. The way you beat UCF is you overpower them, not outsmart them, because they will read you. And, I don't know enough about High Point to say if they have the power. I think Purdue could potentially have the power if they make it past that first game. But you have to be really, really tricky to surprise this defense. And we saw a little bit from USF in the last match, actually. There was a lot of 2-ball kind of beachy feel stuff, but their ability to respond to that was pretty impressive as well.
You're right. We're speaking with Erin Campbell here, talking UCF volleyball. That's who else would be better. Let's talk about, you mentioned High Point. That's who they're going to play in the opening round of the tournament. It's in Omaha this year. The entire tournament is in Omaha. From a player standpoint, your thoughts on that as opposed to them typically going to Gainesville or even hosting like they did the one year in 2018. The drastic difference here from, hey, we got to probably play Florida in Gainesville in the second round or a Florida State versus we're going to Omaha, neutral court, but we're playing 2 teams we're not, a team like High Point, which we're not even familiar with.
Yeah, what I love about it is Omaha I remember going to watch the national championship in Omaha when I was in high school. There is something about Omaha, Nebraska that those people love some volleyball. And it's really cool to see that it gets to go there. You obviously are going to pull the Nebraska, the Nebraska loyal, but that's okay. But it's just really cool to see that they all get to kind of be in that neutral territory and give them that full kind of NCAA tournament experience. I'm really excited to see how they perform, and I think Omaha is just a great place for all of that.
40, hopefully they get their kind of situated, the whole facility issues they're having over there and things like that. They got to kind of sort that out. But you're right on that. 4018 field, different than 64. Give me your thoughts on that. As a
Mm-hmm.
result, UCF will play High Point, and then the winner plays Purdue.
I think anytime you get into a tournament setting, anything can happen. We're on the tail of March Madness, so it kind of feels fitting to say that, anything can happen when you get into that tournament environment. I know a lot of coaches were positioning for it to expand because they wanted basically anybody that could play to get into the tournament. And it's kind of just, it's disheartening that that's not going to go the way that it is, but it also gives a lot of teams, it gives them the opportunity to have that kind of big tournament feel. And I think as a result of that, these teams are going to get on a much higher stage, like the High Points of the world. This may be a great recruiting opportunity for them, just with anybody else, West Point, everybody else that's in that tournament. They're going to get that visibility and exposure that's going to put them in front of the people that they want to recruit. So I think overall it's a good thing. I do wish they had expanded it a little bit more, but I still think it's great for girls to be able to get up there and play.
From a Purdue standpoint, is that a big advantage that they'll get to scout and not play, or is it a disadvantage because they might be a little rusty with this time off and not being on the court? I know you know a little bit about Purdue, so you could also expand on what Purdue might bring to the table should UCF play them.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think it's kind of the chicken before the egg. And I think everybody right now has had to deal with adversity. It's kind of like, well, what's one more game? We've basically taken 18 months off. What's one more game? I do think it is an advantage for Purdue to see it in live action, to watch UCF play. But every team's going to show up and play a different game on any given day. Purdue has a huge reputation of being really tall, and powerful. They kind of have that characteristic Midwestern volleyball feel when you look at the people like Nebraska and the Sarah Pavens that have played in those programs. They're all very tall. They're all very powerful, kind of corn-fed volleyball players. So I think that that's where Purdue may have an advantage over UCF if it gets to that point, that they do have the power and the height. But I think UCF has such a good defense. If those middle blockers meet those assignments, it's going to be a really, really good game. And I had the ability to watch Purdue play a little bit earlier on in the season, and I mean, they're really good too. Their defense is really good, but the one thing that they have is they just have so much power in those front six. But I it's like, it's a battle of defense versus offense, the David and Goliath, as we always see in these really cool games to watch. So I think it'll be a really good game to play out, but obviously their focus is on High Point and getting through that first match.
But do you feel this could be the best shot the program has to get to that elusive Sweet 16 in the Division I era? They have always been in a round of 32 in 97 with Tyra Harper and Menchikova. Most recently, the 2003 team led by Jenny Frank, they got to the second round. And then the last time they were in the tournament in 2019, they got to the second round after beating Florida State in 5 sets. But do you think this could be their best shot because you're not playing on the road against a Florida? You're playing a neutral court, where anything can happen.
And I don't even know if it's that. I think it's that. I think they do. Yes, 100%. And I don't know if it's all because of these like external factors. It may be kind of the perfect combination of this, but what I think has led them and what has led my confidence in them to get to that point is Todd's ability to schedule big teams. Like, he has not afraid to get big teams on the calendar to see how they stack against the elite in the volleyball world. And because they've been there, because he's positioned them to be there, that's why I think it's more, yeah, there are some short-sighted things, but I think his ability or his foresight into creating this kind of marathon strategy to get them to be comfortable in a really, really long time. And maybe it's just the perfect mix this year that all comes together. But I do think they have a very good chance as long as they keep that blocking system as tight as it has been and maybe improve it a little bit. I think that's going to lead the charge for them as they go through the next few matches.
Yeah, I agree. And having that experience, he even kind of acknowledged in the post game after the conference tournament that 2018 they were so young that maybe they kind of overachieved some things. Even though they hosted, they weren't, they kind of didn't know any better. Whereas this group, they've been through these battles. And McKenna said, they have unfinished business. They have that taste from 2 years ago. Obviously, getting that round of 32, they have some unfinished business. That's kind of been their motivation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just kind of the perfect storm of all of those, the stars aligning. And, if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. I mean, if they have a fall season, I don't expect that they're going to be in a different position in the fall, and it's just exciting to see that that's where the program's going. It really is, to be an alumni of it and kind of be there from the inception of Todd's tenure. It's just been really cool to watch this team and the program grow.
No question. And that's a great point you bring up. We talked when I told you that they're going to play in the spring, and you were kind of curious how the quality of play would be like. What did you think of the quality of play, not just at UCF, but across the country, playing in the spring, which is not usual, a cramped season? What did you think? Did it exceed your expectations? What did you think of the quality of play?
I think it did exceed my expectations because, again, I think a lot of people put time and attention in overall training. Now, what training was may have changed depending on different people. So some people may have trained in the weight room more. But I think what we noticed across the board was that players had the ability to focus on the fundamentals of the game. And as a result of that, the game got better. And you see, I mean, I'm looking at my phone every day and it's like, look at this rally between team X and team B. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it's like 5 minutes long, and these are coming all the time because defense, they've just focused so much on the defensive side of the ball and the technique of that. So I do think that, despite my apprehension, I think the level of play has just continued to become impressive. And the freshmen that are coming in to most programs are way more advanced than they were when I was playing. So,
and it should set up a great fall, a great right.
Yeah.
Should set up a great fall because even though it's a quick turnaround, they've kind of played a season here. That experience, a lot of the players are going to be back because of the extra year eligibility. So it's really sets up to be a big 2021 overall for the sport.
I agree. And I think that what's really cool about it is that, they've kind of played this micro season, and I wish that they would do this more. In the spring, we only have like one maybe exhibition match here and there. But I think maybe as the sport evolves, this spring season, this modified spring may become more prevalent so that and maybe it's not going to count to the stats. Maybe it is more of an exhibition style. But I think that that's going to help players get into the swing of things a lot faster. So you can pull those younger players in earlier, get them more comfortable in a game setting. So they're more comfortable when they get to that sophomore, junior, senior year.
Do you think they would even consider doing a 2-semester sport, kind of like some other sports, or you think that's too complicated?
No, that's a good question. It's all about money, right? No, I don't know. I think that
probably is.
Probably. I don't know. I kind of like it being the fall sport because it feels like home for me.
Right.
But I do love the idea of them being able to kind of expand more inter-team play or intra-team play in the spring season. I think that would be a really cool component that if they take anything away from this, that's what they take away from.
Yeah, I think it's a learning experience. But the big thing is they're playing. That's exciting.
Yeah.
They're going to have a tournament, and we'll see what they can accomplish. Erin Campbell joining us here. All right, tell them where they can find you because they're going to be on ESPN Plus here soon, right, for beach volleyball, the A-Sun tournament on April 23rd and 25th.
Super excited about that. I've got to dust up on my NCAA beach volleyball rules, but I'm really excited. A girl that I used to coach, Shay Henson, she plays beach for Stetson, so I'm able to see her play. And what I've always said this, I've always been such a proponent for the sand game that the more opportunities we create for these girls to play at college, the better every athletic program is going to be. So beach is kind of the next step, I think, for a lot of programs. And so seeing it at the ASUN level, I think it's going to carry off into the bigger conferences. And I'm just really excited to be a part of it and be a part of the energy of college beach volleyball, which is something I've never really seen. I mean, I've watched it on TV, but it's just going to be so cool to watch. And I'm very excited for the opportunity to broadcast alongside Tom James, who is just an absolute pro and rock star. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
I will be tuned in. I always tune in when you're on. I've enjoyed you this year with Despina, Barton, and others that you've broadcast on ESPN Plus for the American Conference matches with UCF. And Tom's a great guy. I know Tom very well, so I'm excited for you. Yeah. Proud of you. I'll have to. We'll have to reunite. We'll have to reunite in the booth. But in the meantime, this will do. This will do. So thank you. Thanks for taking the time from the busy schedule and helping us kind of get set for the tournament. And we'll definitely do this soon.
Yeah, I love chatting with you. Good luck to UCF in the tournament.